Werewolves date back all the way to 2100 BC in the Epic of Gilgamesh, where a woman had turned her previous lover into a wolf. Greek mythology had the legend of Lycan, where Zeus turned a man and his sons into wolves, and werewolves were also in Nordic folklore with the saga of the Volsungs, where a father and son found wolf pelts that gave them power to turn people into wolves for 10 days. They used the pelts, turned into wolves, and went on a killing rampage. The question is, are werewolves real? The idea that a legend has spanned almost all of recorded human history and has stories told from every part of the world is what intrigues me the most. Western and Eastern culture all have these stories. But is it just a title given to explain deaths that have no answers? Or are there real-life wolfmen that are transforming and killing? To answer this question, we need to first discuss a few of the most infamous werewolves of all time. In 1521, Frenchmen Pierre Bugat and Michael Verdoom swore allegiances to the devil and claimed to have received powers to turn them into wolves. These two men had killed several children, and after confessing to the crime, they were burned at the stake. Similar to witches, people believed they really were werewolves and thought the only way to kill them was burning them at the stake. Giles Garnier is known as the Werewolf of Dole. Similar to the first two, he claimed to have wolf morphing abilities. He killed and ate several children. He too was burned at the stake. These three men, several things in common. They were murderers. We do need to remember that this took place in the 1500s and 1600s. People were much more naive and scared of anything that couldn't be explained. They also would kill innocent people who weren't part of the conforming majority of their towns. Just think of the Salem witch trials. They put many people to death for reasons we can't even comprehend now. The same goes for werewolves. To them, it wasn't a legend or a folktale. It was real life. It was a story, and it scared many individuals, and when someone who claimed to be one, they took it seriously. I don't think any of these men were werewolves. I think they were deranged serial killers who used it as a scare tactic, or were so mentally gone they actually believed they were and would act out the disgusting thoughts they had in their heads. There is one story that made many people in the 1700s believe that werewolves were real, and that is the story of Peter the Wild Boy. A boy was found naked, walking on all fours through a German forest. He had very unique facial features that no one had ever seen in that area. He didn't speak, he would breathe very heavily, and he was intellectually challenged. King George I and II adopted him into their courts and kept him as somewhat of a pet. Research later shown he most likely had Pitt-Hopkins syndrome, which wasn't discovered until 1978. But for a long while, many believed him to be a real-life werewolf. There's also a very rare psychological condition to cause people to believe they're changing into animals called lycanthropy. Since medically they couldn't explain why anyone might be acting like an animal or a wolf, this could be a reason why so many folklores and legends had sprung up. Rabies as well. Someone could get rabies and go mad and crazy. The biggest thing is just remembering what sounds super silly and obvious to us now would be mind-boggling for people 400 years ago. I could go into more stories from the past about werewolves, but they won't answer the question we are looking for. Are they real? So let's move on to some potential videos, but before we do, I do want to clear one thing up. I'm not discussing dogmen in this video, if anyone is interested. I will do a full episode just on them because I love the craziness that is dogmen and the whole world that revolves around it. So these videos are specifically supposed to be werewolves, not dogmen. As you can see, just like the majority of paranormal videos caught on camera, we have one here that is recorded on a toaster. and I do think it is mistaken identity. I don't think this is a werewolf, and this video looks like it was recorded in maybe the 1980s on a CCTV, and honestly, it kind of looks like a bear. A lot of people do think this is real-life proof of a werewolf. I, however, highly disagree. It looks and moves very similar to how bears move. On to the next one.
Photo shows what appears to be a dead werewolf in a river. The hunters who took the photo have never been identified, but it's said that they killed the creature before leaving the scene. The body does resemble that of a werewolf, especially the head that has large protruding teeth. This picture comes from Brazil and it was taken back in June of 2013 according to one report. As the story goes, this werewolf was found dead and partly decomposed by an unnamed person. The carcass reportedly laid there for 3 days and then disappeared.
Even though these videos are very interesting, it is still hard to say exactly what we are looking at. The last video looks as if it was recorded on a Nokia, and we are really unable to give an answer. But the first part of this video is very interesting. A lot of individuals claim that this isn't some ordinary animal. However, I am inclined to disagree a little bit. If it isn't a prop, which was my first idea, it could just be a normal wolf that had mange, rabies, or even sat in the water long enough to become bloated and have its body morphed. I'm not a biologist by any stretch, but I have seen videos of what happens to bodies when they are dead and stuck in water for a long period of time. It is not pleasant.
Our subscriber cannot assure if it is a hoax or an error in the image, since as you can see, it is not the best quality. However, he is completely sure that what is moving is not a dog because of its body mobility and the way it shifts. They do not agree with that of a dog or any other known animal. From what he concludes based on that howl is that we might be in the presence of a werewolf.
An operation.
Ben,
Did you?
open your window.
He's coming in the house.
What on earth was that?
These final 3 videos are the most fascinating I could find on werewolves. I don't have a lot of answers to these. I do think the last one could just be a house dog of some sort that is just sitting really weird, or maybe an actual wolf. The first one is kind of interesting because we get to see a bunch of different color scales. The second one does kind of creep me out a little bit, and I'll be honest with you, it's very unusual. I would be more sitting on the fence that it's probably edited, but it is a little unnerving for the most part. But I want you guys to let me know what you think of these last 3 videos in the comment sections below, and I will join in the conversation. I'm going to share my full opinion on each one and kind of break it down in text. After all said and done, I think my biggest takeaways while researching werewolves is how we really have come from believing in creatures, witches, and other things of that nature. We do still have a lot of wild beliefs in 2022, and there still is a good amount of people who would argue the existence of such creatures. But we aren't killing people off who claim to be a werewolf. We're helping them. We aren't killing random people off as much for not believing in certain things like they did in Salem. We still have plenty of serial killers and other horrendous types of people, but we don't call them something fictional in order to explain it off what they truly are. The real monsters.